us worship our King. Come, let us bow at his feet. He has done great things. See what our Savior has done. See how his love overcomes. He has done great things. He has done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquer the grave. You free every captive, break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, waking the light. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Through every storm, you'll be faithful forevermore. You have done great things. I know that you'll do it again. For your promise is yes and amen. You have done great things. God, you do great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquer the grave. You free every captive. You break every chain. Oh, God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, waken the light. Oh, Jesus, our Savior, and they lifted high. Oh, God, you have done great things. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things, done great things. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive. You break every chain. Oh, God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, waking the light. Oh, Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh, God, you have done great things. You have done great things. Oh, God, you do great things.
Welcome, everybody. We are so happy that you're here in service with us today. You know, I was talking with some people today, and we were talking about the unique time that we're in right now. It's a weird time, right? I mean, come on, let's be honest. It's a weird time. It's some days we feel comfortable, some days we don't. Some days we want to put pants on, sometimes we want to leave them off. You know, we're all in this spot, and we don't know what to do all the time. But I'll tell you what, there's a couple things. Today is a little bit different. This day is a little bit different. Today we get to set aside all the craziness that's going on and just be thankful for the mothers that are in our lives. The mothers who birthed us, the mothers who, maybe you have a mom who passed, maybe you have a mom who's still here, but today is a day where we can just say thank you to the moms out there. So to all you moms out there, we just want to say Happy Mother's Day. We love you. We're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you're connected to our church and listening to us online, and we so greatly appreciate you. We are about to go into a time of worship, and here's what I want you to think about this week. Me personally, I've been doing a lot of walking. I go for walks late at night, and they're my time to exercise and kind of just take a deep breath. But I've been tuning in to some worship music. And what I've been focusing in on is actually listening to songs that I've never heard before, to worship songs I've never heard before, because I just want to hear the words. I don't want to sing the words, and I don't want to utter them myself. I just want to hear the words. I want them to soak in to what I'm focused in on. And that's what I want you to do this morning. We're in our homes. It's a little bit different. We're not used to being at homes and doing worship, but we have an opportunity to just sit back this morning, listen to the words, listen to this incredible worship team go after God and go after Jesus, and hear the words. So as we're worshiping, stop, recalibrate, refocus, close your eyes if you have to, throw your hands up in the air, listen to the words, and let's just go after God this morning as we worship him through music.
In your presence, there is Your presence goes before us. Your glory has no end. God, you never leave me. let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, oh sinner, come near. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your sin. Oh, who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your head, lay down your heart, come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who stray. Come sit at the table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your sin. Oh, who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your head, lay down your heart, come as you are, come as you are. Fall in his arms, come as you are. There's joy for the morning, oh sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. Lay down your burdens, lay down your sin. All who are broken, lift up your face. Wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your head, lay down your heart, come as you are, come as you are, come as you are.
What a great time of worship. What a great time to just sit back, focus on worshiping and singing. Maybe you're in your living room singing really loud. Maybe you're just listening to the words. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope you were able to connect with the Father this morning. We are transitioning right now into what we do every week, our one big thing. This week's one big thing is focused on our online connect groups. If you haven't gotten involved, this is a great way to get connected into the church online in a laid-back platform. We do Zoom calls. They're really cool. They're really awesome. And in fact, I even want to highlight one right now. We have a really cool online connect group right now that's partnering. They're our serve group, and they're partnering with Middle Tree Church and Boxes of Hope to get out food to people who desperately need it in this time of crisis. So they're going to be going out into the community pretty soon and serving our amazing city And we would love for you to get involved in that. We would love, even if you're not a part of that Connect group, if you're just part of the church and you want to get involved in that, you can seamlessly join into that Connect group if you want. We have youth group Connect groups. We have game groups. We have all kinds of stuff. We have Wednesday night groups where we just get together and we just chop it up. It's a great way to connect. We would love to see you sign up. Go to the website, input your information that you want more info on the Connect groups, and get involved there. In the meantime, we are going to move into our time of the service. This is the season finale this week called The Next Chapter. It's going to be great. Grab your popcorn. Again, put your pants on, take them off, whatever you want to do, but sit back and enjoy. And we'll see you after service.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for One Church here online and having church at home. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Love you. We appreciate you so much. We're so grateful for you as well. In fact, right now, just in the chat, in the comment section, just tell me one thing, one story. Maybe it's the funniest thing that your mom's ever done or said, or maybe there's something. Just like let's fill the comment section with things that our mom said, like hashtag things mom said or something like that, because it would just be awesome to kind of hear, to celebrate moms in that way. I know that we're not with each other physically, so we just want to be able to let you know, moms, that we appreciate you. We're so grateful for you today. We are in the series finale of The Next Chapter, What Happens When the Dust Settles. You know, we've all had our world rocked in this spring. Some have had their worlds rocked more than others. What we do during this season will help us be more prepared and better off in the next. And that's what this whole series is about. What happens when the dust settles? How can we prepare for in this season? How can we put some things into practice in this season? Maybe there's some things in this season that we need to be reminded of that will help us be better in the next season. What happens when the dust settles? And so we've been talking all about this. In week 1, we talked about having uncertain hope. Uncertain hope. We really looked at the life of Joseph and how his whole life was uncertain. There was uncertainty throughout his life, but he maintained hope. He was persistent in hope. And then in week 2, we talked about how our normal can be disrupted. How whether it's a new normal or what is normal, but how our normal is usually disrupted. In fact, that's when God gets our attention the most. And then last week we talked about how important it was to be unshakable. How important it was to really be unshakable, that we've received a kingdom that is unshakable. And so, because of that, we can worship God with thankfulness and with awe. It is important for us to be unshakable during this time. And today, we are going to conclude this series. We're going to wrap up this series with a message I'm calling Timely Bravery. Timely Bravery. And so we're going to look a little bit at this story today in Joshua chapter 2. In Joshua chapter 2. So if you have your Bibles, you can turn it with me to Joshua chapter 2. It'll be up on the screen as well. We're going to look at this story today. See, Joshua has taken over from Moses as the leader of the Israelites. They've come to Jericho, this mighty fortress of a city, this huge walled-off city. In fact, scholars say that the walls were 12 feet high in some places, and they had towers that were 28 feet high, walled-off city. It was an establishment, a city established at 9,000 BC at least. Some reports go back to 9,600 BC, and so it was a fortified city. We know this. This is a very popular story, right? Joshua and the battle of Jericho. And so we see these walls all around the city. And this was the promised land. The promised land. The land that the Lord had promised to the Israelites, that he was giving to the Israelites behind those walls. And the reason for Jericho's earliest settlements are because there were springs which were found in and near the city, and those springs could supply the area with enough water to sustain a very large population. So this is why this was the land flowing with milk and honey. This was the promised land, as the Bible puts it. So we're not going to talk a little bit about Joshua today, though. And we're not going to talk necessarily about the Battle of Jericho. We're going to talk a little bit about the person responsible for helping Joshua win this battle. We're going to talk about Rahab. Rahab was a woman, and she was instrumental in helping Joshua and the Israelites win the Battle of Jericho. And we find her story in Joshua chapter 2. So we're going to read here in Joshua chapter 2. It says in verse 1, Joshua secretly sent out 2 spies from the Israelite camp in Acacia Grove. He instructed them, scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho. Remember, this was land that was known, it had a lot of springs, could sustain a large population. So the 2 men set out and came to the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there that night. We have no idea how they got introduced to Rahab. I mean, we can speculate a lot here. How did they just stumble upon the house of Rahab? I don't know. I don't really want to speculate, but they stumbled upon it, and they came to her house and said, but someone told the king of Jericho, some Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab. Again, why to her? Probably to everybody. Bring out the men who have come into your house, for they have come here to spy on the whole land. And Rahab had hidden the 2 men. But she replied, yes, the men were here earlier, but I didn't know where they were from. They left town at dusk and the gates were about to close. I don't know where they went. If you could hurry, you could probably overtake them and catch them. Actually, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the bundles of flax which she had laid out. So the king's men went on looking for the spies along the road leading to the shallow crossings of the Jordan River. And as soon as the king's men had left, the gate of Jericho was shut. So we see here that Rahab conceals the identities and whereabouts of the 2 spies. This is kind of would pose the question, is lying okay? Right? When's it a good time to lie? I know that you thought about this, and I know you've probably been you figured out, well, if it's to protect my family, if it's for survival, if it's is lying okay? Rahab seemed to be thinking that it was okay to conceal the whereabouts of these 2 spies that she had hidden, and she misdirected the government officials who were chasing them down. In verse 8, it says this. She goes, before the spies went to sleep that night, Rahab went up to the roof to talk to them. I know the Lord has given you this land. Think about that. Think about it. This is a woman who is in this Jericho community. This is where she was raised. This is where she was from. This is where she made her living. This is where her family was. She had nothing to do with the Israelites prior to this. And she says, I know the Lord has given you this land. What crazy belief. She said, we are all afraid of you. Everyone in this land is living in terror. For we have heard how the Lord made a dry path for you on the Red Sea when you left Egypt, and we know what you did in Sihon and Og, the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, whose people you completely destroyed. No wonder our hearts have melted in fear. No one has the courage to fight after hearing such things. For, this is another declarative statement, for the Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and the earth below. This is an amazing profession of faith that Rahab, for the Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and the earth below. And then she tries to do something. She tries to bargain with these 2 spies. In verse 12, she says, now swear to me by the Lord that you will be kind to me and my family since I have helped you. Give me some guarantee that when Jericho is conquered, you will let me live along with my father and my mother, my brothers and sisters, and all their families. So she's beginning to bargaining for not only her safety, but the safety of her entire family and extended family. And the spy says, we offer our lives as guarantees for your safety. The men agreed. If you don't betray us, we will keep our promise and be kind to you when the Lord gives us the land. And since Rahab's house was built into the town wall, she let them down by a rope through the window. She told them, escape to the hill country. Hide there for 3 days from the men searching for you. Then when they have returned, you can go your way. And before they left, the men told her, we will be bound by the oath we have taken only if you follow these instructions. When we come into the land, you must leave this scarlet rope hanging from the window through which you let us down. And all your family members, your father, mother, brothers, and all your relatives must be here inside the house. If they go out into the street and are killed, it's not our fault. But if anyone lays a hand on the people inside the house, we will accept responsibility for their death. If you betray us, however, we are not bound by this oath in any way. They were very careful to kind of dot all the I's, cross all the T's in this kind of agreement, in this covenant. He said, and she says, I accept your terms, she replied, and she sent them on your way, leaving the scarlet rope hanging from the window. And the spies went up to the hill country, and they stayed there for 3 days. And the men who were chasing them searched everywhere along the road, but they finally returned without success. The 2 spies came down from the hill country, crossed the Jordan River, and reported to Joshua all that had happened to them. The Lord has given us the whole land, they said, for all the people in the land are terrified of us. Now, that's all of Joshua chapter 2. That's Rahab's story in a nutshell. We're going to get to kind of what happened a little bit later, but this is so interesting that Rahab's Rahab's existence, her inclusions into the Bible was really helping Joshua and the Israelites defeat the land and the people that she had lived with her whole life. That's crazy. And in Joshua chapter 6, we see kind of what happened in this story. In Joshua 6, verse 22, it says, the Jericho is being destroyed right now. The Israelites have marched around the walls of Jericho. The walls have come down. They're going there. They're kind of fighting. They're killing everybody. And it says this in verse 22, meanwhile, Joshua said to the 2 spies, go keep your promise. Go to the prostitute's house, bring her out along with her family. And the men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab, her father, her mother, her brothers, and all her other relatives who were with her. Then they moved her whole family to a safe place near the camp of Israel. So Joshua spared Rahab, the prostitute, and her relatives who were with her in the house because she had hidden the spies Joshua sent to Jericho. And she lives among the Israelites to this day. Today, I want to talk about timely bravery. Timely bravery. Because I believe that we can really see this take shape in Rahab's life. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever been wrong? Have you ever admitted to yourself that you were wrong? Have you ever admitted that you were wrong? Like maybe to yourself, maybe to other people. Like let us know in the chat. Don't tell the story. But just have you ever admitted that you were wrong? Have you ever known that you were wrong? Have you ever made a decision that turned out not to be great? A career decision, a relationship decision, a tweet that you instantly regret. I don't know, right? Maybe a conversation or argument that you just realized later that man, I was wrong in that. I was messed up. I just made a bad decision. Rahab's story reminds us that it doesn't matter who you are or what you've done, that God can still save you and that God still wants to save you. But in order for him to save you, in order for God to save Rahab, she demonstrated some amazing characteristics that I believe will help you, will help me as well. She demonstrated timely bravery. She demonstrated this in the face of adversity. She demonstrated courage in the face of adversity. And so the first thing I want to talk about is how she demonstrated courageous faith. There's times in our lives that we got to actually put ourselves out there and we have to demonstrate courageous faith if God's going to be able to do something in our life. And so demonstrate courageous faith, the courage it took to protect the whereabouts of the spies. Think about that. The courage that it took to protect the whereabouts of the spies. She was putting her own life at risk by misdirecting the officials, by misdirecting the police, by misdirecting the government and the king, by saying, you know what, yeah, they were at my house, but I think they left, and you can probably catch up to them. They went there. Meanwhile, she knew she hid the spies on a roof. And then she, to really protect the whereabouts of them, and then tell them, instruct them, hey, go here, go down here, hide there for 3 days, and then go here. Like, she did everything she could to protect the whereabouts of the spies. That took courage. There was something that was happening in her life. I don't know what it was. Was it because of the way of her lifestyle? Was it because that maybe she was an outcast in her own city, and she was, perhaps she was living in an idea of saying something has to change in my life. And she realized that the Israelites were coming, and she knew, she had heard the stories, she mentioned it. She had heard what they had done to the other 2 Amorite kings. She heard what they had done to in the land of Egypt. And she realized that this could be my chance. There's something different about this. She even confesses it. The Lord your God is the supreme God. The Lord your God has given you the land of Egypt. That takes courageous faith. I mean, to be able to make a different decision from everything that she had grown up thinking, being taught, and believing, to say, you know what? No, this is the right way. This is the true God. This is the direction that I need to go. To do that, to make that shift in her life, took courageous faith. It also takes courageous faith to change sides, right? It takes courageous faith to change sides. That's what I would actually encourage you with today. Be willing to change sides. Be willing to change sides. Like, for those of you who are kind of outside of faith, and who are kind of just investigating Christianity, who maybe not have a relationship with God, you're doing this life kind of on your own, in your own way, on your own terms, and you're kind of saying, you know what, I'm not really sure about this whole God thing. My question to you would be, how's that working out for you? How's that working out for you? Is there something that you're like, you know what, I'm not quite sure on, or I'm not quite certain in this area? I wish, I kind of think that, there's help over here, or I wish there, I kind of feel like there's something missing, whatever that is. Rahab had the courage, the courageous faith to actually change sides, to go from the side of the city of Jericho and that army, to the side of the Israelites. And we even read there that she lived with the Israelites even to that day that Joshua was mentioning. Like, there is a courageous faith it takes to change sides. There's a courageous faith it took to trust the spies. To trust the spies. Think about that. Even that sentence right there. I'm gonna trust the people who are coming to spy on us. Right? I'm going to trust them with my life, with my family's life, with my extended family's life. I'm going to trust them. That took courageous faith. In fact, Rahab is mentioned several times throughout the Bible. We don't find just her story. We find her story in the book of Joshua, but we find reference to her at several other places in Scripture. In fact, the writer of Hebrews chapter 11 says this about Rahab. It says, "It was by faith that Rahab the prostitute was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God, for she had given a friendly welcome to the spies." She trusted the spies, and because of that, she is kind of represented as a person who had great faith. It was by her courageous faith. She demonstrated courageous faith by not only protecting the whereabouts of the spies, but being willing to change sides, and by trusting the spies. By trusting the spies. In fact, James says it's without faith it's impossible to please God. Without faith it's impossible because faith in God implies dependence on God. Faith in God implies dependence on God. It's impossible to please God without faith, because when you have faith in God, you are recognizing that God is supreme. You're recognizing, like Abraham, like Rahab recognized, the Lord your God is the supreme God. And therefore, because we recognize that He is the supreme God, we live our lives in dependence of God. That's why faith is so important. But she didn't just demonstrate courageous faith. And for you, I would say, don't just demonstrate courageous faith. Demonstrate courageous righteousness. Now, this is kind of tricky, because I want to talk a little bit about this, because as somebody who we know, right, lied to get the spies protected, basically betrayed her own countrymen and women, and then kind of changed sides. If that happened to you, would you consider that righteous? If somebody that you knew betrayed you and changed sides and took the side of your adversary, would you be like, yeah, that was right? Like, we wouldn't think that. We wouldn't act like that. In fact, we would be hurt. We'd be troubled. We'd feel betrayed, and we'd feel like, yes, we're going to outcast the person anymore, be done with them. We don't want anything to do with them because of their betrayal. And that's probably how the people of Jericho felt. But this is what she did was considered righteous. We see it later in Scripture that what she did was considered righteous. In fact, James actually says it this way: we are shown to be right with God by what we do. We are shown to be right with God by what we do, not by faith alone. And then in verse 25, she says, Rahab the prostitute is another example. She was shown to be right with God by her actions. Think about that. She was shown to be right with God by her actions when she hid those messengers and sent them safely away on a different road. And then James kind of concludes that section with, just as the body is dead without breath, so also faith is dead without good works. So what James is saying is it's not enough just to have faith. It's not enough just to demonstrate courageous faith. That's an important part. That is an integral part, but it's not enough on its own. You have to do something about it. And so demonstrating courageous righteousness is important. And we see that in James. She was considered right with God by what she did. The timely bravery to do the right thing at a tense time. Do the right thing when times are good. Do the right thing when times are tense. When there's pressure in your life. Do the right thing. Sometimes it's easy to take an easy road. Sometimes we can ignore something or deflect something and say, you know what? Future self can deal with that. Right now, let's just deal with this right now. And kind of push it off on to later. Do the right thing at all times. When times are good and when times are tense. Timely bravery is doing the right thing at tense times. Demonstrating courageous righteousness. Timely bravery is about being consistent to the promises that you make. Think about that. We read that whole section in Joshua chapter 2, where Rahab and the spies are kind of negotiating on what it's going to take to really be protective. And so they make this deal. They make this arrangement. They accept the terms of the arrangement. And they say, you know what, let it be so. And then, of course, the spies kind of put some disclaimers on there, right? If you don't do this, it's not our fault. If your family's outside your house, it's not our fault. If you break the oath, it's not our fault. Like, there's all kinds of, little clauses like, don't break this in any way, or we're not going to accept any kind of responsibility for that. And so Rahab and the spies made this deal. Rahab was consistent in the promise that she made. This is what I know. Those who are conscientious in keeping promises are also cautious in making them. Those who are conscientious in keeping promises are also cautious in making them. What does that mean? What I mean by that is that if you are kind of willy-nilly on promises, if you're like, you know what, yeah, I made that promise, yeah, I gave him my word, but whatever, like things change, I'm not going to do that anymore, or I'm just kind of like, I don't really feel like it, or like if you're not keeping your promises, guess what? You're probably just making promises just kind of off the cuff anyways. But those people who are conscientious, you know what, my word is my bond. When I promise something, I'm going to follow through with that. They are cautious in making promises. Those who are conscientious to keep them are cautious to make them. And so Rahab and the spies, Rahab was conscientious about keeping this promise. She was consistent in keeping the promise, and she was cautious in making the promise. It took timely bravery to be consistent to the promise she made. Think about that. Like, it's very easy. It would have been very easy to understand that Rahab made this promise, and then when things got tense, when the battle got raging, when the walls came down, when people around her and people she knew were being killed, it would have been very different. Like, we could have understood that Rahab was like, I don't know about this anymore. I'm not sure I'm going to keep this promise anymore. And then she was out. But Rahab was consistent in the promise that she made. She trusted the spies. She demonstrated courageous faith, and she also demonstrated courageous righteousness. Stay committed to the right way. She also she demonstrated righteousness with the timely bravery it took to provide safety for her family. The timely bravery it took to provide safety for her family. Realize that Rahab was not just concerned about herself. She was concerned about her whole family, her father, her mother, her brothers, her sisters, and all of their families as well. She's like, I want my family to be safe. This wasn't just about her trying to get a new life, trying to escape reality and trying to just go off on her own again and be like, you know what, I need a fresh start, just me. This was, I'm going to do something that is going to protect the safety of my family and provide the safety of my family so that we can go on and our legacy can continue. Stay committed to the right way. It takes timely bravery to demonstrate righteousness. Do the right thing at all times, even the tense times. And the third thing I want to talk about is how Rahab demonstrated courageous action. We just read this in James chapter 2, that she was proved right by what she did. She was shown to be right with God by her actions, it says in James. By her actions, by what she did, she was shown to be right with God. The timely bravery it took to aid and abet the spies, right? To help them escape. Realize, we glossed over it when we read through Joshua chapter 2, but realizing that Rahab let the scarlet cord down out her window and helped the spies escape. And the spies told her, if you want to be saved, leave this same cord, this same rope out this window so that we can protect you. It's uncanny. What you use to save others may be the thing that God uses to save you as well. The thing that you are using, the thing that you are doing, the thing that you are demonstrating courageous faith in and courageous righteousness in pressure-packed situations, and you're actually taking courageous action steps to maybe even save others, and God could use that same thing or those relationships to be able to bring you along to safety as well, to save you as well. The timely bravery it took to aid and abet the spies at that time. It also took timely bravery to lead her family to a new life. We saw in Joshua chapter 6 that she was brought to safety. All of her family was brought to safety, and says that Joshua spared her life and that she remained with the Israelites. Like, she found a new home. She found a new family. She found a new tribe to belong to. That takes bravery. That takes bravery. That takes courage to be able to do that. It takes courage to be able to do that. And the timely bravery it took to make the decision to leave her past behind and put her trust in God. Everywhere that we read in Scripture so far, it says that it just says Rahab the prostitute, Rahab the prostitute, Rahab the prostitute. She was known by what she did. She was known by that reputation. Her reputation was of being a prostitute. It was like her name, Rahab the prostitute, right? Like, that's not a great name. Right? But that's how she was known everywhere Rahab the prostitute, Rahab the prostitute. And so she had to be okay with her past, knowing that, maybe she made a bad decision or two in her past, but she was being focused on her future. And that would be the same thing I want to encourage you with today. It's okay to be okay with your past. What's in your past is in your past. You may even be known by what you did in your past, but it doesn't have to be your future. It doesn't have to be your future. Be focused on your future. Rahab had timely bravery to make a decision to leave her past behind and to be focused on putting her trust in God. The Lord your God is the supreme God over all heaven and all the earth. And she confessed her faith, her belief, and her trust in God. It takes timely bravery to make that call. It takes bravery and courage to know that wherever you walk through life, you may be known by the past mistake that you did. But it's okay, because I'm not my mistake. I'm not my past. I've been marked by Christ. I've been marked by God, and now I'm a son or I'm a daughter of the Most High, and now that is who I am now. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. I'm focused on the future. I'm focused on putting my trust in God. That takes bravery and courage to walk day in and day out, not being strung, not being hamstrung and handcuffed to your past, but knowing your future. Sometimes it takes more courage to stay than to go. In fact, we talked about that a few weeks ago. We talked about Paul's shipwreck story and how he told everybody to stay on the ship. And sometimes it takes more courage to stay than to go. But at other times, we need to be injected with the boldness and the bravery to move. To move. to change sides, to step in, to make a decision to change our life and the lives of our family forever. Rahab made that brave step. She demonstrated courageous faith. She demonstrated courageous righteousness. She demonstrated courageous action. She had timely bravery. I'm not sure she ever internally shook that reputation of her past life before she made the decision to follow God. In some ways, it stuck with her. We just talked about that. But I know this, it didn't disqualify her from being included into God's family. And it won't disqualify you from being included in God's family. It didn't disqualify her from God's story. God has a story He wants to write in your life. And He wants you to be part of His story. And what you've done in the past, who you were in the past, doesn't disqualify, won't ever disqualify you from being included in God's story. It didn't disqualify her from forgiveness. She was forgiven. She was saved. She was deemed right with God. No matter what you've done, no matter who you are, no matter what your past is about you, no matter how you feel about that, it will not disqualify you from the forgiveness of God. Even though she is known everywhere else as Rahab the prostitute, in Matthew chapter 1, she is known as someone else. Matthew chapter 1 kicks off and says, this is a record of the ancestors of Jesus the Messiah. And it just starts to list a bunch of names. It goes all the way back to Adam and starts to list a bunch of names. And in verse 5 of Matthew chapter 1, it says, Salmon was the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz was the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of King David. Rahab was King David's great-great-grandma. In verse 5, she is not known as Rahab the prostitute. She is known as Rahab the mother. Salmon was the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. It doesn't matter what your past has been. It doesn't matter what your present is. All it takes to change your life is one decision. One decision. It's literally one decision away. But that decision may require some courageous faith. It may require some courageous righteousness. In tense times, in pressure-packed times, it may require some courageous action. All in all, that one decision may take some timely bravery. And that act of timely bravery will rewrite your story. It will change the trajectory of your life and the life of your family and your legacy. So today, be brave. Be courageous. Make that bold decision. Demonstrate timely bravery. Let me pray for you today. Father, thank you so much. You are the Lord. You are the supreme God over all the heavens and all the earth. And God, I thank you that we can take a look at the story of Rahab and realize that it doesn't matter what she did, it doesn't matter who she was, that she did something that took extreme courage, that she demonstrated courageous faith. She was righteous in times that were tense. And she provided safety for not only herself, but her entire family. And then she was recognized in the story and the lineage of your son, Jesus. She was right with you by what she did. God, I pray, Father, that we can be inspired and motivated to demonstrate the timely bravery it takes at times to kind of move, that we can be injected with the same kind of boldness to move and step out, to maybe make that decision to follow you with everything that we have. God, I pray right now, if there's anybody watching that's ready to make that one decision that's going to change their life and change the life of their family forever, to make that decision to follow Jesus, make that decision to know that you are the supreme God, that right now, and if that's you, just right now, just say, God, I believe that you are God and that Jesus is your son. Let me be included in your story. And if you've prayed that prayer, You are not disqualified from being saved. You are not disqualified from being written and being part of God's family. You are not disqualified from being in God's story. You are not disqualified from forgiveness. In fact, God is granting you by his grace all of those things. He wants you. He wants to save you. He wants you so bad in his family to give you forgiveness. And then what was your story will not be your story. Will not be your ending. God, I just pray, Father, that you will give us the grace and the mercy and the boldness to know that what the past is in the past and to be focused on our relationship with you and what you're calling us to do moving forward. God, we give you all glory and all honor. Thank you so much for helping us see a little bit of a picture of what it takes, we can put in our lives through Rahab's story. God, we pray that you will just be with us today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Wow. What an incredible message of the power of one woman who trusted God when she didn't feel like she was very loved. A woman who is acknowledged as somebody who was a prostitute, but had the foresight and had the wisdom to see that there was something special that was going on, something special and unique that God was doing in her life. We love the story of Rahab, such a beautiful story. It's the story of all of us, that we were once sinners, we were once wretched, and we were once unforgivable. And what the world saw as something horrible and disgusting and unwanted, God saw potential. God saw beauty. We love that story. Hey, I want to tell you something right now. If you were impacted by this message, if God was speaking to your heart, if God did something stirred inside of you, and maybe you weren't a believer before, maybe you didn't know about this God thing, and you made a decision today, would you do us a favor? Would you go onto our website and let one of us know? Write in the comment section. If you need prayer about anything, you can write it in the comment section on our social media. But if you made a decision today, would you let us know? We would love to hear your story. We would love to hear about what God is doing, because God is doing some incredible things in this church, and we want to hear about that. Rahab's story is unique. It's a story of trust. It's a story of faith. It's a story of when things looked questionable, trusting and relying on God. And that's the same thing that God asks us to do each and every day. He asks us to have faith and to trust. And one of the ways that we have faith and one of the ways that we trust is by our tithe and how we give. And we, as one church members of this church, believers in Jesus, we give. We give the first fruits of what we work for. So that's what we call the tithe. And today, just even though we're in a one church online format, we still give. God still calls us and commands us to give of our tithe. And so here at One Church, we do that three ways. We go online. We can go to onechurchstl.com. We also can text to 84321. Those are the ways that you can give. As somebody who has been a faithful giver for years, I can tell you that when I give, it's an act of trust. But more so, it's an act of a blessing. It's God saying, trust me and let me lavish you on top of that. So we are so excited that you guys were here this week. We are glad that you listened in. We're happy that God is doing some amazing things at this time with the church and with the global church as a whole, and we can't wait to see what is yet to come. So we would love to see you come back next week. Join us online. Here's the cool thing is you can share this all throughout the week. It doesn't have to be just right now. Maybe this message will impact somebody 5 days from now, maybe 3 weeks from now. So share it, like it, love it, and we can't wait to see you guys next week. And we want you to know that we love you, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Be blessed.